Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala sayyidina wa habibina ibn Abdullahi wa ala alihi wa tayyibina wa takhirina wa sahabatihi wa man tabi'um bi ihsan ila yawmiddin. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an adilla aw udal aw azilla aw uzal aw azlim aw uzlam aw ajhal aw yujhal alayya. I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I should go astray or be led astray, or that I trip or be tripped, or that I oppress or be oppressed, or I be ignorant or ignorance be done to me. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. O my Rabb, open my chest, ease my task for me, and remove the impediments from my speech so that they may understand what I say. This evening is the 15th of Safar, 1437 years after Hijrat. I'm coming back after a little gap, and mainly because of some illness that I have. For those of you who were there in the last class, you would recall that we had completed up to ayat number 245, which really speaks about spending in the way of Allah. And that's a good indicator of how much faith we have as to how much we increase. And the ayat was that when you give something in the way of Allah, it's a beautiful loan, and Allah increases His manifold, and then that's where we ended. Now, tonight we are going to begin with a new ayah, and which is ayat number 246 from Surah Al-Baqarah. And as you can see from this ayah, this is a complete change over what we have been talking about. So we have covered up the rules and regulations relating to women, to talaq, to spending, and now we're going back into some history. And we're going to look at the history of Bani Israel, which is what you call the Israelites, and we're going to look at how this history blends with what Quran is saying. You know, a lot of these historical things we are learning now, and we are learning because knowledge has exploded. Knowledge has become so available to everyone, but at the time of our Prophet ﷺ, this knowledge was not available. And I'm going to show you in the next few ayahs and in this ayah how close is Quran to what modern history is actually telling us. So we look at the Islamic sources, which is from the Quran. We'll also look at what the Bible is saying, and I'm going to show you some video clippings which actually are made by, by the Jews. So we'll see how history is interpreted by them and what Quranic views on this. So tonight we are turning our attention a little bit away from the normal, the do's and the don'ts and the moral laws, etc. that we have been looking at in Surah Baqarah, and we are going to be looking at Bani Israel. We look at their history, and the reason for that, again, to understand their history, is that we should not be repeating the mistakes that Bani Israel did in their life, because Quran frequently mentions Bani Israel. In fact, there's a whole surah. When we reach about the middle of Quran, we will be looking at a whole surah which is actually named Surah Bani Israel. So this is really an important topic from a Quranic point of view. Musa alayhi salam, who is the prophet, who is really the one who took Bani Israel out of, in the Exodus, he is mentioned in Quran as many as 136 times. Musa alayhi salam is mentioned in Quran 136 times. And so there is a reason for that, and the reason is that this is not just any story. This is not just a story for us from a historical point of view, but it is to really show Muslims a mirror. Because Muslims are being shown a mirror so that we can draw moral lessons from what Bani Israel did during their lifetime, and we do not repeat the same mistakes. Please remember that Israelites or Jews that we are talking about, they were the Muslims of that time. Like we are the Muslims of this time, they were the people of faith at their time. So they were the Muslims at the time that they were there. They had been given a book, like we have been given a book. They had been given a law, like we have been given a law. They had been honored. Allah chose them as a chosen people, and Allah really elevated them and showered with many of the blessings that He had given. In fact, we saw even in Surah Baqarah earlier about Man and Salwa and how Allah guided them into wilderness. But when they broke the law, when they broke the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were subjected to severe punishments. And I think this is where the moral lesson is. The moral or the punchline is that don't be under a false impression that no matter what you do, you will always receive the blessings of Allah. You will receive the blessings of Allah as long as you remain obedient to Him. And when you are not obedient to Him, then those blessings can stop, and then the punishment can also start. So this is not just a one-way street. It is not just a one-way street. We have to do something to get something. We need to be obedient to get His mercy, to get His blessings. And I think now Muslims, as people with the book, now that we have the Quran, we are elevated to the position that Bani Israel occupied for many, many hundreds of years. In fact, a couple of thousands years. If we behave like Bani Israel behaved, then we will also receive a similar treatment. In fact, when we read Surah Bani Israel, and I'm going to run through a long presentation with you on how these people have lived through the Exodus and how their temple had been destroyed the first time and second time, and the kind of problems that these people face. So for us also, I think there will be huge moral lessons that we'll be seeing tonight, and then inshallah later on also. So let's just look at who these people were. I think now it's a time for us to understand who Bani Israel were, because a lot of time Muslims are ignorant about the historical events. They are ignorant about the history of Bani Israel, and so therefore they cannot really relate to these ayahs of Quran. So let's just read this ayah, which is ayat number 246. Alam tara ilal malai min bani Israila min ba'di Musa is qalu li nabiyyin lahum ib'as lana malakan nuqatil fi sabilillah qala hal asaytum in kutiba alaykumul qitalu alla tuqatilu qalu wa ma lana alla nuqatila fi sabilillah wa qad ukhrijna min diyarina wa abna'ina falamma kutiba alayhimul qitalu tawallaw illa qalilan minhum wallahu alimun bizzalimin. So as you can see, it's a long ayah, but it's an ayah which we need to really understand. And this ayah, if you look at the translation, it says, have you reflected upon the leaders of Bani Israel after Musa? Have you reflected upon the leader? And this is the reflection that we are doing now. We need to think about them. Quran is not just giving you a story of these people. It's not saying, have you read the story of Bani Israel? It said, have you reflected upon them or not? And I think this reflection is what we're going to do tonight. And he said, and they said to their prophet, appoint for us a king so that we may fight in Allah's way. And he said, which being the prophet who was there with Bani Israel at that time, is it possible that you were commanded to fight and you will not fight? And they said, and why should we not fight in Allah's way when we have been driven out of our homes and our children? But when fighting was ordained for them, they turned back except a few, and Allah does not. But Allah has knowledge of those who do wrong. So this is the ayah. And now for us to really understand who Bani Israel were, who Musa was, we also need to really go back into the history and just get a glimpse of the Israelites, of these people. So we're going to look at some historical facts. Who are these Israelites? Who are these people? Where did they come from? What was their book? What were their practices? And this is something that we will be doing. If you say who is a Jew and where did they come from, looking at this question, they originally came from a place which was called Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia was a region where they had originally settled in a place called Canaan. This was about 1750 BC, and there were 12 tribes. There were 12 tribes who were living over there. They migrated from here, as you can see, they migrated from here. This is the migration of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam as he migrated from this town, and then he went to Haran, and then he went down to Memphis, and then from there he went down to Makkah to establish the Kaaba. Then he came down. This is the Babylonian Empire of that time. This is where these people originally had come from. So these 12 tribes migrated to Egypt, and we're going to talk about why they migrated, because there was a famine in this area in Canaan, and so therefore they had migrated from there into Egypt. They first prospered in Egypt, but then their situation declined and they were reduced into slavery, and this is the time when the pharaohs took over. The Bani Israel had actually lived in Canaan, and one of their brothers, Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, was sold into slavery. He went off to Egypt, and then he became the chief minister of finance over there, and he invited them. And at that time there was a lot of famine that was there in Canaan, and as a result they came in. For 200-300 years they lived well, and then when a new pharaoh came, he actually made the slaves out of them. Eventually, in about 1250 BC, they went away, or if you may use the word escaped, or they left, or on Allah's guidance under the leadership of Musa alayhi salam. This is what you call exodus. This happened in around 1250 to 1300 BC, and then they lived a nomadic life in the Sinai Peninsula for many hundred years, and this became their eventual home for them. Now, they did not regard this to be a permanent solution, because they felt that this is because they were convinced that their God, they used to call their God Yahuwah, had promised them the fertile land of Canaan, so therefore they stayed over there, and finally they conquered many of these places and set up their capital became Jerusalem. Under Dawood alayhi salam, they would conquer this area. So these are the people who are originally coming in from Mesopotamia, and we are looking at a time of nearly about 4,000 or 3,700 or 3,800 years from today. So this is the area of Memphis where they were migrated and they came in from. Now today, if you look at the world population is about 7 billion. There are about 7 billion people in this world. Nearly about 1.5 billion are Christians, 1.4 billion are Muslims. Jews are nearly 12.8 million. So this is even less than the size of Karachi. If you see Karachi, then the total population of Karachi is nearly about 18 million. And the Jews in this world is about 12.8 million. But how much influence they have on this world? How much influence? They are the best in science. The maximum number of Nobel Prizes are given to Jews. They are best in anything that they do, whether it is literature, whether it is science, whether it is entertainment, whether it is news. They are really all over the place. Some of the top news companies are all owned by Jews, or they are dominated by Jews. Some of the best singers, including Barbara Streisand, etc., they are all Jews. Some of the best people who make films, they are all Jews. Some of the best people in medicine, they are all Jews. Some of the best engineers that you see, and there are only 12 million Jews in this world. That's how they are blessed. Allah has really chosen them as people, and they are really capable and really hardworking people. And as a result, despite the fact that they are so small in size, they have dominated this world. They've really dominated this world. Now, where are they located? In the United States, there are about 5.5 million Jews. In Israel, there are about 3.9 million Jews. In Soviet Union, there are about 1.2 million Jews. So, not a very large number. From a number point of view, they are very small. But from a discipline point of view and hard work and commitment, there is no match to any other group of people in this world. There are no match. There is really no match. This is how clever, this is how hardworking these people are. Such a small number of people and doing so much. Now, what are the basic sources and what is the basic doctrine? When you look at the Islamic doctrine, we'll see and what are the sources for that, and we'll just make a comparison between their doctrine and their sources to what is, as Muslims we are, and look at that. One of the most essential belief, like in Islam, is the belief in one God. That's how our kalma begins. That's how Islam, we become Muslims. La ilaha illallah. That's the first part. There is no God but Allah. And this is a central belief also in Judaism. The belief in a single God. After Islam, if there is a monotheistic religion, truly monotheistic religion, that is Judaism. Because Christianity is really an offshoot, and in fact, in many ways, Christianity cannot be even called a monotheistic religion, because they have so many, this belief in Trinity and all sorts of falsehood. Christianity is very close to paganism. We will do the history of Christianity, and I'm going to really go through the details of the source of Christianity and where it came from. You would find majority of the rituals that are there in Christianity, whether it's Halloween or whether it is Christmas or whether it's they're all coming in from pagan religions. And this is not my saying. I mean, I'm going to quote to you from the Christian sources itself. But not so within Judaism. They believe in a single God, like Muslims also believe. They have this covenant that there is a contractual agreement between God and the Jewish people. They believe that there is a contractual agreement between them. And then they have these two traditions which form the core, or what you call the fiqh or jurisprudence of Judaism. There is a rabbinic tradition. So Judaism is not just a religion of Old Testament. Sometimes we believe that Jews only believe in the Old Testament. No. Like we have Quran and we have Hadith, we have these two main sources for guidance. Within Judaism also they have the written Torah. They have the written Torah, and then they have an oral Torah, which is what they call a Mishnah. Mishnah is very similar to what we would say our Hadith. Obviously, our Hadith is much more refined and defined, because you can see the tradition, the isnad are there, and every Hadith can be taken, traced back to our Prophet ﷺ. Mishnah is more like their coming in from their wise men or from their pious people, how to live a life. So it's similar to what Hadith is, except that the sources are not clearly going on back to their own prophet, but they're going back to a number of sources. So Mishnah, this is their oral Torah that is there. Now, Torah occupies a very, very important position in the life of a Jew. It is opened up once in a year. At the beginning of the year, and they have a great ceremony for the Torah. It's regarded to be something which is extremely pious, extremely holy, and the original Torahs they will put them in a scroll. It's not like a book, it's like in a scroll. So the scrolls are opened up, and this is packed up in a beautiful casing which is made from a silver casing, and every year they would take this Torah out from the storage, and they would have a whole ceremony behind it, and then they would open the Torah, and a Jew is expected to read the Torah from the first to the end before the end of the year. Like we are expected to read the Quran at least once in Ramadan, or at least we have to repeatedly read. For a Jew also, he would have a whole ceremony which is going to be behind the Torah, and then they would read this Torah. Now they are so careful about Torah that they would not actually touch it. So they would not touch it with their fingers. They don't touch it with their hand. They consider it to be so holy that they don't touch it with their hand. They will touch it with a pen, and we're going to see that. So this first video that I'm going to show you is a video about the beginning of the new year. Like we say 1st of Muharram, we have 1st of Muharram. These people will also celebrate the beginning of the new year, and that beginning of the new year, it would be that in their temple they would take the Torah out, the priest would take it out, and then they would unroll it, and they have a whole ceremony. So let's just look at this small video clipping.
Where does their unique story fit into the larger epic of mankind? Into the history of empires and civilizations? When and how did they conceive the idea that has been their greatest and most lasting contribution as a people, the idea of God that most of the world's great religions have come to share?
So this is a beginning of the ceremony where they would open the Torah. As you can see, they were not touching it. They would show it off, so it's a whole ceremony that's being followed. Now, the basic doctrine and the sources, the book that they have, this is a picture of Torah, as I told you, the scroll that are there. The Torah, which is the law or the doctrine, that's a cornerstone for the Jewish religion and the law. Its study is considered to be an act of worship, like we consider it to be an act of worship to read the Quran. So it's an act of worship also, and then it's also a source from which you derive a lot of laws. As we have seen in Surah Baqarah, many of the laws that we have seen are all derived in from Quran, and that's the same true for a Torah. Now, scrolls are considered to be the most holy of the documents that they have. It's protected by a covering of rich fabric, and it's decorated with a silver ornament. So they honor their Torah a lot. Like Muslims, sometimes we put the book on top of the shelf, we kiss it, we put in a beautiful case, and that's exactly, you see that's also a commonality between them. Now we're going to see. I'm going to make you hear how a Torah sounds, because remember, Torah, like Quran is in Arabic, Torah is in Hebrew. The original Torah that is there, it is written in Hebrew, and so therefore let's just hear what the Torah, how does it sound when these people are reading the Torah.
But the Bible is a relatively modern document, an anthology started only about 2,500 years ago by a group of Jewish scholars exiled from their homeland in a foreign capital called Babylon. It was a collection of a people's memories, some written, some only told, about events that were already receding into the distant past.
Moses did not know that the skin of his face shone because he had been talking with God.
Lorsque Salomon eut achevé la maison de l'Éternel et la maison du roi,
Aconteció
The first 5 books of the Bible, which Jews call the Torah, the teaching, traced the genealogy of their people, traced it back to a line of godly men, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, and before them to an ancient place which was the starting place of all their memories. The Torah calls it Eden, a garden watered by the rivers Tigris and Euphrates.
So what you can see from this, remember the first point he said? The first point he said that Torah is a relatively new document. Its history is about 2,500 years. Whereas the history of, when it was revealed onto Prophet Musa alayhi salam, that was nearly 3,500 years ago. It's about 1300 BC. And the reason for that is that the original Torah was actually destroyed. When the second temple burned down, the original Torah that was there was only the original Torah that was completely burned down, and they had no copy at all available of that. And then the Jews went into Exodus, and so therefore they scattered all over the world, and they realized that we have lost our book. They realized they lost our book, so therefore the scholars got together, and out of their own memory, they actually wrote everything down. Now this is not true for Quran. Quran has been there for the last 1437 years exactly in the same format and form as it was revealed onto our Prophet ﷺ. And that is the reason why we are expected now to be the believers of Quran and not of the Torah, because the Torah contains a lot of things which have actually been added by people on their own, because of their own perception, because of their own knowledge. And so therefore it's a man-made document, it's not a God-said document. It does contain parts which were revealed onto Musa alayhi salam. Yes, it does contain parts. But purely and truly, it's not a book which has been preserved. And this is what Jews also believe in. This is what Jews also believe in. And Quran is a book which is completely protected, and if you recall, there have been some manuscripts of Quran which have recently been traced, which were there in one of the libraries in UK, and they have found those manuscripts that have been discovered, which were written about the same time, at the time of our Prophet ﷺ. They've done the carbon dating, and they have found exactly that. One of the ayahs was Ayat Surah Nur also. They've just discovered them, and when they compared against the modern Quran, they found that word to word it's the same. There's no change in words. So in 1437 years, there's been no change in the way the Quran has been earlier revealed onto the Prophet and the way that we read it today, which is not true for Torah. Now, let's just look at the kind of worships and practice. As Muslims, we know our worships and practice, what we do. We say 5-time prayers, we go for Hajj and Zakat, but let's just look at the worships and practices of Jews. In Judaism, they have a very important day. Like we have Friday, they have Saturday as a day on which they call the day of the Sabbath. Now, but before that, we will look at some of the books that these people follow. There is they call these 5 books the Pentateuch. These are which in Greek means 5. The first 5 books of the Old Testament, which is the book of Genesis, the book of Exodus, the book of Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. These are the 5 primary books. These are the 5 primary books of faith, and these are all in Hebrew. It's almost like saying that there are 5 surahs, like in Quran we'll say Surah Fatiha, Surah Baqarah, Surah Al Imran, Surah Nisa, Surah Maida, etc. This forms, or we have more than 103, but they have these 5 books. So these 5 books are there. They all contain the story, different types of story. Genesis is a book which will trace the history of mankind, of how first man was created. So if you want to look at the history of mankind, which means from Adam alayhi salam, etc., down, we look at Genesis. If you want to look at the story of Musa alayhi salam, which is the Exodus, which is how he took people out, that you will see in Exodus. Then Leviticus and Numbers, which in Deuteronomy will talk about the foods and what to eat, what not to eat, etc. These are the primary books that are there. 5 books. So Jews actually are the believers of the 5 books. The first 5 Bibles are Jews. Now, the Bible consists of 2 testaments. We see when we say Bible, the word Bible, Torah is different from Bible. Bible consists of two testaments, the Old Testaments, which comprises of 39 books, and the New Testaments, which comprises of 27 books. So when you say Bible, there are 36 books. The first 5 books are what you call the Old Testament, which is the book of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. But all in all, the Christians also follow the same books, but the Christians follow the New Testament, which is the 27 books that are there. Sometimes I'm going to quote from their books also. Total 66 books is what you call a Bible. Now let's just also look at the place of worship. Like we have masjid, and in Judaism they have a temple. They call it a temple, and in temple they have this saying which is going to be written in Hebrew: I keep the Lord always before me. You know, we always say you must be conscious of Allah. Like in Islam we say ittaqullah, be fearful of Allah, because you must be conscious that He is present with you wherever you are. And a Jew would also be, having a similar, they would put it in their temple: I would keep the Lord always before me. A synagogue, this is how a synagogue looks like. You've all seen masjids, but you may not have ever visited a synagogue. This is where a Jew would come and pray. This is how a synagogue is. Now this is not just an ordinary decoration that you are seeing. Every temple will be like this. There are some very important marks over here that I'm showing over here. They would have a place to put the Torah. They would also have a place where they would light the candles. These are standard part that would be there in every Jewish temple that if you were ever to visit one of them or any other of them. So you see all these markers that I put, they represent a temple. In some places they would burn incense, in some places they'll have candles, and they all have certain meanings that we will talk about a little later. Now, how do they pray? Like we have 5 prayers as Muslims. Jews also have prayers. They also pray, and they must recite the 8th benediction 3 times a day wherever they are. If they are traveling, they should dismount, face towards the Jerusalem, and recite these prayers. So 3 times they will be reciting. Like we have to pray 5 times a day. And what we have to do wherever we are, whether we are traveling or we are in a place, we'll go to say our namaz. A Jew 3 times a day, he would recite the 8th benediction. Now what is the 8th benediction? Just read this 8th benediction. You know how to recite a Muslim prayer. We all know. We read Surah Fatiha, we read some surah with it, then we read Attayat, and we stand up and we do that. But what would a Jew be doing? He would stand up, face Jerusalem, and he would read this 8th benediction, which says, be mindful, O Lord of ours, in thy great mercy towards Israel, thy people, and towards Jerusalem, thy city, and towards the Zion, the abiding place of thy glory, and towards thy temple, and towards thy habitation, and towards the kingdom of the house of David, thy righteous anointed one. Blessed be thou, O Lord our God, the builder of Jerusalem. So this is like their Fatiha. Like we say, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. This is how the Jew would be reciting this. Most likely he would be reciting this in Hebrew. They are required to actually learn Hebrew so that they can say their prayers 3 times a day.